Welcome to Solin Speaks. I'm Dan Solin. We're here to talk about the real issues financial advisors face. And today's episode, well, it might make some advisors a bit uncomfortable. But hey, that's why we're here, right? To get real about what's working, what's not, and what we can do about it. I use AI technology to create these podcasts for those who prefer learning by listening. My co-host is David. He will interact with me and elicit the main points of a blog I wrote on this subject, which you can find on LinkedIn.
Great to be here, Dan. And I have to say, you've got a bit of a spicy topic lined up for us today, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about client trust, or rather the lack of it, in the financial advisory world. There's a new study out of the Journal of Economic Perspectives called The Problem of Good Conduct Among Financial Advisors, and it's bringing up some tough issues for the industry.
Right. I read through your blog on this, Dan, and it's clear the study doesn't paint the prettiest picture. Why don't we start by breaking down why clients seem to have such a hard time trusting financial advisors?
Sure thing. Let's start with some numbers. In 1995, only about 20% of U.S. households used financial advisors. Fast forward to 2019, and that number's close to 60% for households with investment accounts. So more people are looking to advisors for help, yet the industry ranks as one of the least trusted out there.
That's a huge jump. So what's causing all this mistrust?
Well, the study points out that it's a combination of things. First and foremost, misconduct. And not just a few isolated incidents. We're talking about a pretty pervasive issue. About 6.6% of advisors have a record of misconduct. And get this, some firms even have repeat offenders who just keep finding their way back in.
That's concerning, to put it mildly. So we're looking at an industry where there's not only misconduct, but also, in some cases, a culture that seems to tolerate or even enable it.
Exactly, David. And it's not spread out evenly. Some firms and regions have much higher rates of misconduct, which makes you wonder what's happening in these environments. The study suggests that it could be down to hiring practices or even company culture. Some firms seem to be more focused on profits than on ethics.
That's rough. And speaking of profit over ethics, I remember you mentioning the term conflicts of interest. Can you break that down a bit?
Conflicts of interest are one of the biggest trust killers in this industry. A lot of advisors are compensated in ways that might encourage them to push products or services that aren't necessarily in the client's best interest, just because it lines their own pockets better.
It's like going to a doctor and getting prescribed the most expensive treatment, whether you need it or not.
Exactly. And clients naturally pick up on this even if they don't fully understand the nuances. They sense that something isn't right, which erodes trust over time.
And the study mentioned this naming and shaming approach, right? Where firms with a high misconduct rates are publicly listed.
That's right. One of the study's most interesting findings was that naming and shaming actually led to a 10% reduction in misconduct at those firms. When you put these firms under a public spotlight, they start cleaning up their act. It's proof that transparency and accountability can work.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. It's almost like, hey, if you don't want to be called out, then don't engage in shady practices.
Exactly. And another important finding. The study highlighted just how much financial literacy, or the lack of it, affects all of this. Many clients don't have the knowledge to distinguish between good and bad advice, which makes them more vulnerable to unethical practices.
That's a really tough situation. So, what's the takeaway for advisors who are listening? What can they actually do to turn this around?
Great question. The study offers a few actionable insights. First, transparency. If advisors can be upfront about their fees, conflicts of interest, and the scope of their qualifications, clients will feel more informed and in control. The less clients feel like they're in the dark, the more likely they are to trust their advisor.
That makes total sense. No one likes feeling like there's something hidden in the fine print.
Exactly. Second, advisors need to hold themselves to high ethical standards. If you're making a recommendation, it should be because it genuinely benefits the client, not because it boosts your commission.
So, essentially, do the right thing even when no one's watching.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And third, on the topic of certifications, while credentials are important, the sheer number of them out there has led to some confusion. Not all certifications are equal. Advisors should aim for reputable, rigorous certifications, like the Certified Financial Planner or Chartered Financial Analyst, and not just pad their resumes with lesser-known titles.
So, don't go for alphabet soup after your name just to impress clients. Make sure those credentials actually stand for something substantial.
Exactly. And last but definitely not least, education. Advisors should make an effort to educate their clients. When clients understand the basics of financial planning, they're better equipped to spot red flags and make informed decisions. An informed client is a more trusting client.
I love that, Dan. So for advisors listening today, it's really about three things: transparency, ethics, and client education.
Absolutely, David. And here's the thing. Financial advisors have an amazing opportunity to make a real difference in their clients' lives. But to do that, they need to prioritize trust over profits. As the study shows, there's no quick fix. But with consistent effort, the industry can rebuild that trust.
Well said, Dan. This was such an important topic to cover today. I hope every advisor listening takes this to heart and maybe even takes a good hard look at their practices.
I hope so too, David. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Solin Speaks. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and check back regularly for more insights. If you want to drill down more on this subject, check out my blog on this subject on LinkedIn.
Thanks, everyone. Until next time, keep doing good work out there.